Hello and welcome again to the Fisherman's Post Saltwater Podcast Series. My name is Gary Hurley of Fisherman's Post. Fisherman's Post has been serving the saltwater fishing community since 2003, bringing you fishing reports, fishing news, fishing information, fishing tournaments, and fishing schools. And now, in our newest and latest chapter of serving the fishing community, the Saltwater Podcast Series. In this podcast series, we call on our local captains and guides from up and down the North Carolina coast and get them to share their knowledge, their expertise, with the goal of helping you to catch more fish more often. But truly the goal, I think, is to get you out on the water, spending more time more often on the water with family and friends. I'm happy to have with us today Captain Jeremy Hicks. He's coming to us from Hatteras. He is of Calypso Sportfishing Charters out of Hatteras Harbor Marina. And we're going to be talking about Mahi 101, the basics of Mahi fishing. Jeremy's going to start us off with the where and when, and then we're going to move into the how and what. And I believe that afterwards you're going to have a very good knowledge of summer Mahi fishing. I'm joined in this endeavor, as I am in every episode, by Billy Thorpe of Thorpe Creative. Welcome, Billy.
What's up, Gary? Good to see you again, man.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more comfortable, although I might have stilted that intro a little bit. I feel like I'm getting more and more comfortable sitting in this chair talking to that
every
camera.
Time. I mean, when you can start to reflect each other with our colors and everything, unplanned shirt colors here, we're looking pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
we're getting the flow, man. Getting the flow.
Right on. Talk to us. Tell us about, do our setup, please.
Well, let me tell you how to watch and how to listen. So here's our little social slide, if I can get to pull up. So this podcast is on all these different platforms: Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and you can watch it on YouTube. It's really important to subscribe to those channels. That way, anytime that we upload a new episode, that you can get a notification that says, hey, new episode's been uploaded. And once again, the best way to help us promote this podcast is just to share word of mouth with all your friends. I'm not going to say the sipping suds with buds line. I've already said it too many times. But
okay.
Anyway, so that's the way to do that. But once again, this is all made possible by Marine Warehouse Center here in Wilmington, North Carolina. So we really appreciate those guys sponsoring this episode, Gary.
Yeah, man, we love the guys at Marine Warehouse. I'm going to guess.
Here we go.
That you have a video.
Oh, I do have a video. I was waiting for the Emmett little known fact, but that's after the video. So here we go, guys.
This is Robbie at Marine Warehouse Center, and we're excited to announce that we are the exclusive North and South Carolina sailfish dealer. Sailfish offers an offshore capable boat with tons of family-friendly features. Whether you're a hardcore offshore fisherman or you just want to island hop, Sailfish can do it all.
That's a pretty good looking boat there, Gary.
It is a good looking boat.
It is. Every time I watch it, I'm like, man.
And I know you're expecting an Emmett little known fact. I know you're expecting that, but I don't have one today.
Oh, man, I'm on the edge of my seat. You can make one up, surely.
I have a Marine Warehouse Center.
All right, perfect.
Little known fact. Little known fact. Marine Warehouse started as a swap and shop store back in 1983 where you could trade or buy items such as go-karts and hubcaps.
I mean, that sounds pretty plausible, but it's not. Or is it?
It's true.
It is true.
I got it off the website.
All right.
I figured I can't be too predictable, so I tried to grab a fact off the website, and I thought that was pretty cool, actually. They got a good photo up on the website. They show the history.
A little bootstrap action. I like it.
So there you go. How about showing me a fish photo?
Yeah, man. Let's see a little fish photo right here. Here's Brad Weathersby from Raleigh with a false albacore caught on a couple miles off Topsail Inlet on a Big Nick Macahoo with a dead cigar minnow. Pretty cool. He's fishing off his Sea-Doo. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, man. I like that angle. Caught off the Sea-Doo, a selfie there holding it up.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
I'm glad that photo made it.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
Before we go, I just want to remind you, Billy Thorpe, not you, the listeners, you, Billy Thorpe, that at the end of Jeremy's presentation, I am going to be asking you, Billy Thorpe, for Billy's best takeaway. I want you to know the best takeaway moment from the podcast, takeaway piece of advice, loosely defined, but we will finish with Billy's best takeaway. You've been reminded, so tune in, don't tune out.
I'm up for the challenge.
All right, let me introduce our guest. Our guest is Captain Jeremy Hicks, Calypso Sportfishing Charters out of Hatteras, a longtime friend, longtime associate. I've fished with him several times, numerous times. Look forward to it every time. And now I'm excited to have Jeremy on the podcast series. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, guys.
Hey, man.
Gary, how's it going?
It's going good. Good to see you out there. Glad to see that Hatteras has Wi-Fi enough for you to get connected. You were always sort of fingers crossed out there.
It might be spotty.
It might be spotty, but Hatteras is beautiful.
Yep,
hey,
Hatteras is beautiful.
I forgot to prep you on this one element. Well, I forgot to prep you on a couple elements. So I'm going to ask you to sell yourself a little bit, a little self-promo. We do this with every captain. Jeremy, why should people listen to you talk about Mahi fishing?
Should they? I'm just kidding. I've been very fortunate this is my 13th or 14th season here in Hatteras, and I've been very fortunate to have learned from a lot of really good mates and to have learned from a lot of really good captains that have been willing to share their knowledge that they've gained over the last 30 plus years, a lot of them. And, we're fortunate here because I feel like our fleet gets to fish more than a lot of other fleets in North Carolina because we're so close. We're so close to the Gulf Stream. And, when I get to fish 80 or 100, or when I was maiden, 120, 130 days a year, we caught a lot of dolphin. We were very fortunate. And, I like to share that knowledge with anybody. Dolphin fishing's fun. It's bread and butter for us in the spring and summer and even into the fall. And it's a great thing. And I enjoy it. And, I hope that I can help somebody to enjoy it as much as I do.
That is an acceptable answer, Jeremy. We will continue with the podcast. You have passed the first test.
Thank you.
Now, before we begin with Mahi 101, the basics of summer Mahi, we have another feature here that I forgot to tell you about prior to the start of the episode, and it's called the 2 questions. It's where I ask you 2 questions that aren't fishing related.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Calypso Sportfishing. I think it's odd that you named your boat after a type of music, but anyway, where did Calypso music originate?
In the Caribbean.
I have to accept that. I have Trinidad written down, but I have to accept that.
Yep.
Name one famous Calypso artist.
Harry Belafonte.
Man, he killed it.
Oh, good job. Good job.
You want to know where the name came from for the boat?
From mythology.
Mythology. Greek mythology.
All right, give it to me.
Calypso was a sea nymph, and she would seduce sailors.
All right, that's good.
To sea. She also in the Odyssey, the Journey, is that it? Or the Odyssey. She seduced Odysseus and kept him as a slave of her want and will on her island for 7 years before releasing him. So anytime that her name is Google searched or it's brought up, it is said that Calypso diverts men from their goals.
All right.
Pretty apt for a fishing boat.
That's hot.
Divert them from work, go fishing.
Yeah. I get the connection. I
good.
have some literature in my back pocket. I get the connection. Jeremy, I've been thinking people are already wishing we had already started talking about Mahi fishing, so we'll jump right in. I think what we talked about was you thought it appropriate to start with the when and where. So kick us off, Jeremy. Start us with the when and where of the basics of Mahi fishing.
Absolutely. As I mentioned before we started this, there have been dolphin caught off of Hatteras waters every month of the year. I can remember catching one in a cold 59-degree water, bluefinning, one year. We had a charter in February, and we caught a nice gaffer. So, it's a broad gray spectrum. But traditionally in April, we start looking for the numbers. We start looking for, a couple here, a couple there. And as we get into May, we start seeing the conditions, the temperature breaks, the weed line or the yellow brick road, as we call it, conditions that will hold the dolphin. And sometimes that'll carry right on through, September, October, November, easy. And, that's when I'll start looking. And again, it's our bread and butter. Dolphins are plentiful, fortunately, and they're kind of, some days they will stump you, but for the most part, they're kind of predictable.
So what are some of those conditions that hold the fish? I guess that's where we'll go. And yeah, I like that you clarified, like you're speaking specifically from a point of reference of Hatteras. Now, of course, a lot of what you'll say can be carried up and down the coast,
Right.
but specifically you're speaking from your point of reference in Hatteras. So talk to me about those conditions, man. Talk to me about, finding fish, locating fish, holding fish, predicting fish.
So a lot of the pelagic species that we target, they are structure oriented. So, and structure can be a lot of things. Structure can be a blue-green, green water, colder green water to a warmer blue water change, as we call it, where the two bodies of water butt up against each other. Sometimes you'll find trash there. Sometimes you'll find weed, sargassum weed there. Sometimes you won't find anything. It'll just be a blue-green change. That will hold bait, and that will hold dolphins. That will hold the mahi. And then once I'm not saying they're not going to be in that green water, but once you get into that blue water and you have structure, whether it be ledges or whether it be a wreck or a broad rock structure like the rock pile here, a lot of times if there's bait there, it'll hold the dolphin. So, those are the first two things, and we start looking for those changes, those blue-green changes, blue to real blue-green changes, slower current to faster hot water current. That'll hold them. And then in between, you'll have the sargassum weeds and the lines and the big patties. And, it's not every day you're going to find an actual weed line. It might just be that it's scattered grass with large patties, or what we call the end patties. You go around the end patch and there'll be 3 or 4 dolphin, and then you might have to go a little bit further and find another one. And then, they could be anywhere. They could be right underneath it. They could be just off of it. And then we have floats. We see a lot of debris floating out there, and that debris, whether it be the sargassum or whether it be a pallet from a ship or whether it be some boards or some floats from some gear that have broke free, like longline gear or something, or whether it be honestly a Haitian raft. One thing that was found one day last week off our waters, there was a piece of an aircraft. They're unsure what it was from, but it was some type of aluminum riveted piece of an aircraft way out in the deep, had dolphins on it. So, the weed lines, the rips, the changes, the grass, floats, all those areas are conducive to holding dolphins.
So how much of a plan do you have before you go out? Like, what is the homework what is the homework that someone else can do before they head out, as far as temperature breaks, current breaks? I mean, I understand about keeping your eyes open all the way out and, playing the conditions, but I'm a little bit curious about homework that you do or preparation you do before you pull out of the dock. Is there much of that?
Absolutely. I like to talk to the guys. If I didn't fish the day before, I'll talk to somebody who did. I also like to, I look at a sea surface temperature shot. If there's no cloud cover and we can see good temperature, and on that sea surface temperature shot, as we call it, or map, you'll see where the water temperature will go from, say, 68 degrees to maybe 77 degrees. And that shows up as a very sharp edge on that sea surface temperature shot. And then as you look further offshore, you can see another sharper edge of hot water. And generally that hotter water, and I only reference the Rutgers SST chart because it's free and it's what I look at all the time. When you see that hotter, faster water, it's generally really dark red. It's up there in the 80s, and it's going to be, for the most part, it's going to be in the deeper water. And when I see those things, I can look at it and say, hey, this has got a there's going to be a blue-green change somewhere. I just got to find it. It may look like it's in 20 fathoms, or it may look like it's in 50 fathoms. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to run right to it, because if I get into good, clean, pretty water and I see flying fish, I see, scattered grass or a weed line, it doesn't mean I'm going to run right straight to what I saw in the sea surface shot. I'm not going to go past something that I would consider that would have a dolphin on it, or, hold bait that the dolphin should be there.
I follow. So if this podcast is going out, we'll say mid-June, end June. I didn't check to see an exact calendar date. But again, in my mind, you were going to talk about Mahi 101 with a specific emphasis on summer Mahi. Mm-hmm. Is there a water temperature that we're looking for, or really it's an elusive target and it's really just about change, not about a certain temp?
It's about those conditions. And really it's not a certain temperature, in my opinion. And especially in the summertime, because we've got up to 75, 78 degree water all the way in on the beach. So there have been, since I've lived here and that I've known of, and I've done it myself, I've caught smaller dolphin on Clark spoons on half days right on the beach, not in numbers. There's also been dolphins within 10 miles of the beach. And what they were on is they were on a weed line or a little bit of a temperature break, or a condition that held the bait as a weed line, or a temperature break. So I personally, I don't really look at a lot of the temperature. It's more, dolphins are more structure or bait or condition oriented than they are temperature.
Okay. I follow all that. And so I guess what I'll ask now is, like, anything else that, I'm not setting you up to answer, that I'm not asking, that, knowledge as far as, our heading of when and where, because if we're finished up with when and where, I'm going to push you, to some trolling, to some technique stuff, but I don't want to do that unless you've covered what you want to cover with when and where.
My encouragement to anybody who's looking for a dolphin is to don't think that just because you find a weed line that's 10 miles off the beach that there's not a dolphin there. Just because it's not the Gulf Stream does not mean there could not be a Mahi there. I remember one year there was some scientific gear that was placed down at a certain depth about 7 miles off the beach, and it had a float with a flag on it. And, we were having a real hard time because the conditions weren't offshore. We weren't seeing the dolphins offshore like we should. We weren't, we'd find the grass line, but nothing would be there. And one boat stopped in there one morning and stopped, and he threw some chum out, and 500 summertime dolphin swam out, and he caught his limit real quick. And, it's so many times we get tunnel vision. We say, we've got to go to the Gulf Stream. We've got to go to the Gulf Stream. We've got to be in the Gulf Stream to catch a dolphin. And that's not always accurate. You can find these dolphin. You find bait and you find a condition that they should be in, generally you're going to find them. And like I said, just because, or if you pass a pallet and you're only 15 miles off the beach and you're in 80 degree water and you see a big pallet floating, it does not mean just because you're not in the Gulf Stream that there are not dolphin on that float. Okay. If that float's been in the water long enough to start the food triangle, to start having barnacles on it, and to start having, little bait fish and everything, there is a chance there will be a dolphin there.
All right. I like it. And so now I guess where this conversation will go is, we've slowed down. It's time to put out some lines. Now, I've been on your boat. It's impressive, just the number of lines and how you manage it. And I want to get to that point. But I think before we get to, what you specifically do on a sport fisher, because I know there's people here who want to know that, maybe you start with a more simple spread for some of my boaters that aren't quite equipped to put out the same spread you do. So maybe give me your opinion of a more simple spread to start a grass line or a patty or ledge. And then after we do like the beginner intermediate, then we'll go with your thoughts more on intermediate expert. How about that?
Sure. One philosophy, I want to preface this by saying that if I can accurately fish 4 lines and I can maintain those 4 fishing lines with 4 baits on them, and I can hook 4 fish and catch 4 fish and do it again, That's much better than having 8 lines out there and not being able to adequately maintain them and hook 8 fish and catch 8 fish. See what I mean?
Yep.
So a lot of times we'll, when we set out in the morning, if we set out on a weed line, I'll only put 3 baits in the water because I can adequately maintain those 3 baits a lot better than I can 8. Now, if I get going down the weed line and it doesn't seem like it's holding a whole lot, or you just get a bite here, a bite there, then I'll deploy my entire spread. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's what we do. So, when I set out on a weed line first thing in the morning, or if I pull up to one and I've got a whole spread out, I like to make things simple. I'll bring everything in and we'll deploy 2 small ballyhoos, generally one right down the middle in what I would call short shotgun position. I'll put one on a flat line closest to that weed line or condition or change or whatever. I want it to the inside. I want it the one that entices that bite first. And then to the outside on the flat line, we'll put what we call a nylon or an artificial, something pink, something that's got a little chugger head on it, something that makes some commotion in the water, and we go to work. A lot of times we don't even put the outriggers down. We stop on a weed line, we fire 3 baits out, we get 3 bites. We've got what I call a pitch bait with another rod with a ballyhoo on it, small ballyhoo on it, ready to go in a bucket, and you get a couple bites. Anglers get fighting the fish, the mate will go over and grab it, and as the boat's still slowly going forward, he'll put it back there. He'll dump that bait back there in hopes that there may be another one following up. And I'm kind of strict on my mate. I want him to have at least 2, if not 3 or 4, when we're on a weed line, ready to go. Pitch baits, ready to put in the water. And then, you can, sometimes you'll turn 1 or 2 fish into 3, 4, 5, 6. Really easy. But as you're floating those baits back, I feel like the fish that are following up, they see the other 2 or 3 that are hooked and they're creating commotion and splashing around, and they're like, oh man, we got to get in on this. And then there you are floating a bait back. It might not be swimming pretty because your boat's going forward slow, but they're opportunistic eaters, so they eat it and you hook them, and then you've got another one on, and then you do the same thing again. And you don't always have to have 4 pitch baits. 1 is enough. And you catch a fish and you put him in your box, and then you take and snap it and get another bait hooked on, and float it out the side. And that's a thing I really like to harp on, because you can turn 1 or 2 fish into 10 in a short amount of time. And then, man, you got 10 dolphins in the box. It's like, wow, this is happening. We're doing a good job, and we're learning to adequately maintain our 3 lines or 4 lines, while we're also learning how to pitch bait. You're pitching baits to the dolphins, and a lot of times they're going to eat it right behind the boat.
So, a couple of questions.
Sure.
So, I'm gonna hit you with like 3 questions, and then you can answer them. They're all related. So, small ballyhoo, man, I love numbers. Like, give me an idea of what you mean when you mean a small ballyhoo. The artificial, the chugger, something with commotion. Do you have a hook on that? And then the pitch bait, I'm guessing that's also a small ballyhoo. And then, well, let's go with those 3.
Absolutely. So we call the small ballyhoos. They're probably 7 to 8 inches. You buy them in a pack, and they're actually labeled small. And you use, a lot of guys are using like the 90, 95, 71 Mustad. They're real small hooks. They're not very big at all. The Matsuo live bait hook, which they do not make anymore, those were 7.0s, and they were chemically sharpened, and they were nice. You didn't have to run a file to them. You'd use them one time and you're done. But the way these dink baits are rigged is that you take a really, really small, and I say small hook, I would say it's no bigger than about 2 inches. And I apologize, I don't have the numbers for the Mustad hooks right now, but you just take a really small ballyhoo, and you loosen him up real good where he swims, and put that through there in a little chin weight, and just rig him to where it's easy for a dolphin to inhale the entire bait. So he'll take that small 6, 7, 8-inch ballyhoo, and when he eats it, he eats the whole thing. And what we do is we feed it to him. We want to have our reel in freeze spool when he eats it, and we want to have our thumb on the reel, and we want to let him eat it. We want to let him take it for 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, and that seems very effective because a lot of times dolphins, those mahis, they'll bite it and then they turn away and then they'll start eating it, kind of like a sailfish or white marlin. But they'll eat it and turn away, and then they'll swallow it down, and then once you engage a drag, you've got him on. And it's a real effective way. Dink bait fishing. It's a real effective way to catch dolphins of all sizes. I wish I had one with me, but what I do have with me is I have what we call the chuggerhead nylons or artificials. I have a couple examples of those here that I'd like to share with you though right now. Let me grab one.
Yeah, man, I'd like to see it.
So this is one here. This is one that I've caught. Let's see if we can get it up there. It's been hanging upside down, so the skirt's backwards. But this is just a small chuggerhead. I won't go over what brand it's made by, but it's just here's the hook. It's just a real small chuggerhead, and you put it on your flat line, and the action of that cupped head as it goes through the water creates motion. You've already got 2 dolphins that are eating your ballyhoos over here. This one's over here. The third one's going to come up and he's going to whack it, which I wish that we could zoom in on that head, because that head is, it is scarred up. I've caught a lot of fish on this. Biggest mahi I've ever caught last year, 58 or 59 pounder we caught on that.
Right on.
Here's another one. I'll go over this because I enjoy pulling this lure all the time. The guys who make this lure actually come down to Hatteras and fish every year, and they bring a bunch and they drop them off. Kind of favors a squid. Let me back up a little bit so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Kind of favors a squid, and it's got a little cupped face on it, just a slant head. It's a great thing. This one, if we could get in close, it probably needs a new head on it. This thing's been eaten up. But, it's just something. And you notice that we're going with the same color here. Pink, very popular color in the mahi fishing days. But, it's just something that it creates a little bit of motion back there. It has a little smoke trail. And really that one, being it's away from the weed line, it's not the one that, you want them to see those pretty little ballyhoos swimming, and you want them to attack those first, and then the one that falls up, he's going to say, well, I'm an opportunistic eater, so I'm going to go eat this thing. And, they have lures now that are bullet heads, Gary, and they do great too. I just feel like a little bit of commotion, a little bit of smoke trail through the water, I think it does just a little bit better.
I follow. So let's go this route because I have these questions now. Okay. So one, what speed are you typically trolling at? After you get a bite, what do you then do as far as the speed of the boat and the direction of the boat? Do you stay right on the weed line, or do you turn away at all? And then what's the attitude when you get a bite? Is it mate, client, whomever, grab that rod as quick as possible? Or it doesn't really matter because you want that, it sounds like you want that fish to run a little bit before anything really happens.
Yeah, so my boat, when I put my boat in gear, I'm at 650 RPMs. And generally speaking, speed over ground with no current, that's about 6.6, 6.7 knots. Every boat is different. Some boats that have bigger motors go faster. Some boats, like outboards, they're different as well because you have to get a higher RPM to get up to that speed. And sometimes it creates a lot of whitewater. If I am just trolling, I am in gear trolling at what I know is 6.6, 6.7 knots. A lot of times when you find these conditions that we've been talking about, when I pull up to them and I don't get a bite immediately, I'll slow the boat down. And I'll slow the boat down to like 3 or 4 knots with my trolling valve. I'll slow it down. And sometimes that difference of 2 or 3 knots entices the dolphins to come out from underneath whatever condition we're at. A lot of times on a weed line, especially in the summertime, when the smaller schoolie dolphins, or fun-sized dolphins as we call them, when they're around, we'll slow the boat down to that 3 to 4 knot. Nothing specific, but we just slow it down, and it seems that they'll get curious and they'll come out from underneath that structure and check you out. And then that's when you can hook them on a little ballyhoo, or a chunk of squid or something like that. So when that happens, if I'm trolling along and I get a bite or two, I generally want to stay right along, like right along the weed line or right along the change. I want to stay right there with it if I can at all possible. Sometimes sea conditions won't allow it. Sometimes, if there's 3 or 4 boats on the weed line and they're all right there together, somebody's going to pass you. Or if you hook that, 40-pounder when you think you're targeting 5-pounders, and he takes a whole bunch of line off, you kind of want to circle around there to him when you're on light tackle. But, every situation's different. If I'm just trolling right along, right down a weed line, and I get a bite, I catch a fish, and I get a bite, I catch a fish, get a bite, catch a fish, I'm generally not going to do anything different. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Right down the weed line, generally the same speed. As we hook a couple fish and, we see that they're going all different directions, then generally I'll slow the boat way down, try to keep it going forward just a little bit. But sometimes, depending on the size of the fish, I might have to circle around to the larger fish, which forces the other people to, smaller fish, just to get them to the boat. And I'm not helping them out as much as I am if I'm circling back around. But a lot of times, you'll do that. You'll catch 10 of those, what we call slingers, little 5-pounders. You sling them in the boat, and then the next one is a 40-pounder. And you got him on 30-pound test, and you have to change the attitude of the boat to go over there and assist the angler. Because a lot of times those bigger fish are just, they're hard to catch on that light tackle.
Yeah, they're smart. They know how to use their broad body.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, man. When you're trolling those weed lines, when you're trolling those patties, you ever get any grass on those hooks, man? Does that ever happen? And, help us out. I'm trying to do that straight face. I couldn't even do it straight face. It happens to everyone. The quickest way to get, anything you can give us tip-wise to help clear the lines as quick as possible, so that the hook bait spending the most time in the water and not reeling all the way in to clean it and put it all the way back out.
A lot of times, myself included, I'm like, oh man, there's scattered grass. I got to get out of here, because I don't want to deal with it. Because it might be a tough day, it might be slow bites, and then you add on to it that you troll through an area and grass gets on every bait. But that's just a part of it. And that's where they live. That's their habitat. That sargassum grass, at some point, was a weed line. The wind might have blown it off, whatever it was, and it scattered it all out. It doesn't mean the fish left. It means the fish are still there. So a lot of times what you have to do, and what I like to do is you remember, is I put a man on every rod. I'll take my charter clients and say, hey, that's your rod. You watch that bait only. Grass gets on it, I want you to crank it up. Do whatever you got to do to get the grass off. Make sure that we don't, pop it out of the clip if it's an outrigger, because we want to be able to put it right back where it was. But, sometimes you have to reel it all the way up. Sometimes that's just the breaks of fishing in grass. But a lot of times, you can manipulate it a little bit, whether you crank a couple times or drop it back a little bit further and then crank real fast. And, that grass is just a part of it. And it aggravates all of us. But I promise you that the more time you spend in that grass, the more chances you're going to have to catch mahi. That's where they live.
I believe you. I believe that answer. All right. I think we're coming close to the end. Before I ask you for final thoughts, or just to make sure I haven't missed anything, if we are elevating to more of an 8-line spread, if we are going more aggressive, what tips do you have as far as hey, hit this in the check mark box to make sure you have these different types of offerings out, or your theory about distance and formation of having that many offerings in the water?
It's not easy. And, we're fortunate that my mate will have typically 4 to 6 lines in the cockpit, maybe not so many dolphin fishing, maybe just 4, or if we're just regular fishing. And I usually fish 4 off the bridge. And the way my boat is my two flat lines, which go right off the stern of the boat. They're the closest to the boat. They're fished off the back of the boat. And then the next two are the short riggers, and they're kind of fished to the outside on the gunnels. And they're going to be in the short rigger clips off the outriggers, and they're going to be, there's no specific distance. If I have a chugger head, if I have a sail lure or something, I want it creating smoke coming down the face of that wave. I want it having its action. Typically, my ones on the flat lines are going to be pretty swimming ballyhoos, or maybe a artificial or a plug in a ballyhoo. And then the short riggers are going to be just a little bit further back. And then as they come up on the bridge, the long riggers, of course, are going to be the furthest out, and they're going to be the furthest back of the rigger baits. And then sometimes I'll take a short shotgun and I'll place it in between my short riggers and my long riggers. And then, of course, we have our shotgun, which is going to go the furthest back. It's going to be your prettiest bait. I like blue and white for my shotgun. I've caught a lot of different fish on that. I've caught a lot of fish on it, a lot of different species. But I like a blue and white sea witch, and I want it back there swimming real pretty. And, with dolphin fishing, it's kind of hard to do that. That's why I stated earlier about the 3 or 4 bait spread. But when I find that condition and we fish on a long time and we don't have any bites and we're going to fish on off, we're going to go on off deeper, go look for more weed line structure, whatever, then I want to deploy and have an offering for everybody. Blue and whites, blue and blacks, purple and blacks, red and blacks, pink, maybe some naked ballyhoos with no skirts or anything on them. I just want to have offering for everybody, because now we're having to go look. Now it's not that we've pulled up to this weed line and it's easy. You know what I mean? Like, now we're going to have to go do some work. We're going to have to search. We're going to have to try to find bait, have to try to find some structure with bait, maybe another weed line offshore. But as we're covering ground, that's typically when I offer more. Make sense?
Makes total sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew I've fished with you before. I know you have a purpose behind every detail on the back of that boat. And I think that was very good, sort of explanation for our forum right here with this podcast. And so that brings me to, basically the wrap up question, like, what about it? What about final thoughts? Again, I kind of voice it like anything I didn't set you up to share, anything that comes to mind, here at the end of the podcast. What do you have for our viewers?
I'll tell you what, I'm going to use an example. And this really has nothing to do with a lot of stuff that we've talked about.
Perfect.
One day when I was mating, we were very fortunate. Generally, my captain, when I mated on a boat for a number of years, and, we had good fishing, Gary, and we would catch 20 or 25 dolphins, like nice gaffers. And his philosophy was, hey, we get 24, 25 gaffers, or we go and we, bail 30. We get those schoolie dolphins, and we get 30 of those. Man, we're going to go look for something else. Talk to the people, make sure they're cool with it, because they got a lot of meat, and we've been lucky and fortunate. And hey, let's go experience something else that the Gulf Stream has to offer. And for the most part, no problem. Our clients would be like, man, yeah, let's do it. Let's go look for a wahoo, or let's go look for a billfish, and let's go do something different. And we had a crowd one day, and they just did not want to do anything else. I mean, they didn't want to do anything else. And we caught a lot of dolphins. I think we ended up with like 57 gaffer mahis. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I like to fish and I want to catch fish, I feel like those guys probably wasted a lot of that meat, because how in the world could any 6 guys eat 57 gaffer mahis? And I was in the store that evening, and I was getting something to bring home to cook for dinner, or to go with dinner. I think they might have gave me a fish. And there were some guys in front of me, and man, they were just so stoked. They had took their boat out there, and they caught a handful of dolphin, and they were just stoked. And I thought to myself, man, sometimes we ruin fishing. We ruin it. We take for granted the fact that we can catch all these fish. And nowadays, it's kind of nice. Like even if I go with my family, or if we go and we just catch a couple fish and we have dinner and it's nice, I try not to take anything for granted when it comes to fishing. I try to be proud of every fish I catch. I try to be proud of the effort that I put into it. I try to maximize my opportunity, and I try to do that every time. So, my thing would be take advantage, maximize your opportunities, do your prep work, do your homework. When you go out there, be ready for anything. Make sure your crimps are good, your knots are tied, and just make your day. Make a day of it. Enjoy what's out there. Enjoy the flying fish, the color, the fish you do catch. Don't ruin it by thinking that you have to catch every fish out there. And so many times, charter fishing, we feel like we've done that. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, man. I like sharing a little Zen moment with you here, and I'm on board. And, I'm often talking about the experience. I'm talking about the memory,
Yep.
more than the meat, man. I love Mahi, fish tacos. I mean, I love eating fish, but I think
Absolutely.
we can all on some level understand the sentiment. Hey, I asked the captains at the end, quickly, we don't want to go into too much detail. Give me the quick calendar review. If someone's watched this, said, man, I like this captain, I think I might like to fish with him. I don't know that I want to summer Mahi fish with him. I might, but give me the highlight reel of what you're doing in the spring, the summer, and the fall.
Okay. Absolutely. April starts our season. Typically, we hope to have tunas, blackfins, yellowfins, occasional wahoo, and mahi mixed in. As May comes around, it is full swing. You never know what's going to bite next. Yellowfins, blackfins, blue marlin, wahoo, dolphin. As we get into June, we still have a lot of that. And then towards the middle end of June, it tends to get that summer mahi and billfish. And then, our wahoo season starts sometimes in July, maybe early July, maybe late July. We'll have a lot of wahoos around. They'll carry right on through the fall. Still have mahis, still have, occasionally blackfin, still have marlins. Feel free to give me a call, chat about it, send me an email. I can tell you traditionally when I think the different types of fish are going to be moving through our waters, but like I said, it's traditionally. I can't guarantee it. They have tails and they swim. It's a big ocean, but we'll definitely, if you have a target, something you want to try to do, we'll definitely try to get you here in a time when we hope that they're going to be here, and put our 110% in to go do exactly that.
Jeremy, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you on this podcast. I miss you. I miss Hatteras. And I'm going to, as I say goodbye to you, I'm going to turn to Billy and say, Billy, let's not even pack up the studio. Let's just hop in the car
And just go.
and go to Hatteras
Yeah.
and just be at the dock tomorrow morning when Jeremy walks down to the Calypso
That'd be awesome.
and put on our puppy dog eyes and say, are you sure you don't have any room for us?
That's a great idea.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on his boat one time, but the weather was so rough we didn't get to go out, and so that was
hurricane, wasn't it?
yeah, I think so. I think
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was when I had the small boat. We got down to the inlet and the swells were just ridiculous.
Yes.
Hawaii 5-0.
You made the correct call there, Captain. Even with people wanting very much to go fishing and looking at you, you made the correct call.
Yeah, man, that was awesome.
Billy,
Good
best
show.
takeaway moment.
I think the most, best takeaway, encouraging thing is like you don't have to go to the Gulf Stream to find mahi. Like you can find them closer
Right on.
than you think. So
Yeah.
that's encouraging.
I like having a plan, but I like not being married to the plan. And you see something intriguing. I mean,
Yeah.
you hear that we've already heard it repeatedly by our captains. Have a plan, but don't be married to the
But don't be
plan.
married.
Keep your eyes open.
And do what Captain Jeremy said, man. Just go out there and enjoy it. I think that's why we create this podcast, so people can create those memories. So
I
that's
agree.
awesome. Just good work. And speaking of the podcast and how you can share it and create some good memories as you learn with your family, go check us out on Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and share it with your friends, share it with your family. Let them know that this is a place where they can learn and grow as anglers and create those memories, man. So good. So, Gary, did you have a tournament coming up? I believe you had one. I got a slide for you here.
You have a slide for
I got
me?
a slide for you. Let me bring it up here. There we go.
The Topsail Inshore Challenge. It is a 2 red drum event, and the way Fisherman's Post approaches the events is we make them very easy, very friendly. And so you are not required to have only 2 anglers on the boat. You're not required to only use artificials. You know, you can have as many people on the boat as you want. You can fish bait or artificials. And if you don't have the means to keep that fish alive over a full day of fishing, you can weigh in a live or dead red drum. You know, it's about the event. It's about the experience. It's about the memory, I believe. And there's also nice payouts at the end of the day.
Sounds fun, man. I gotta get a boat. What am I doing? Somebody watching this want to donate me a boat. I can feel it.
I'm not sure I feel it.
Wait, hold on. I think maybe our sponsor, Marine Warehouse Center. Is that no?
Maybe that's what I'm feeling. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to reflect more.
Oh, man. Well, once again, thank you to Marine Warehouse Center for making this episode possible. And really appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to share, like, do all those things, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.